1850. So we just skip forward 20, 25 years, and now it's time for California to join statehood. So the Compromise of 1850, it's 1849, and there were 30 states, 15 of them free, 15 of them were slave. And then California was ready to join the Union. And they did not know what to do because California is a very long state. It's a big state. It's far away. They've been using the whole Missouri Compromise up to this point. So there were just a lot of debate again about what to do this time now with California. Well, Henry Clay, still alive, still ticking, now 73, he called for peace. And he said that this needs to get worked out. And if not, we might have a civil war. Well, we haven't really talked about the Civil War yet, and it's what we're going to talk about a lot from here on out. But what a civil war is it's any time that a country is fighting in a war against itself. Okay, it's a war between people of the same country. So the Civil War would be like if my advisory class got in a fight with each other, that would be a civil war. But if we've got into a war with Mrs. Price's class, that would be a short war. But it'd be a war anyway. But it would be a regular battle. It wouldn't be a civil war. So anytime it's a war of people of the same country or the same group, then it is a civil war. So they're afraid that the United States would go to war against itself. Well, the problem is, or not the problem, but a lot of the slave states disagreed with Clay. Um, they were fine if we end up going to war. They were ready for some things to be changed. But a compromise was eventually worked out. This is a very important compromise, the Compromise of 1850. It had 5 parts. Part 1, California entered as a free state. Okay, so California is a free state. That means that slavery is not allowed in California. New Mexico and Utah were created. Voters from each of those states would decide on slavery. It says slaver, but there should be a Y there. The voters would decide on slavery, whether or not to have it or not. There has been slavery all this time in Washington, D.C., where the president lives. The Compromise of 1850 got rid of slavery in Washington, D.C. So basically, California entered as a free state. Washington, D.C. lost slaves. A strict fugitive slave law was enforced. Okay, fugitive means runaway. So this means they made a law for slaves that would run away. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. And the last thing the Compromise of 1850 did is it settled a border dispute between Texas and New Mexico, which isn't really as important to all of this as everything else. But after the Compromise of 1850, here's what the United States looked like. We had all of these states in the orange were the slave states. Up here were the free states. This is starting to sort itself out a little bit. Getting like Minnesota territory now. And here's California, Utah. It's starting to sort out more than it was 20, 25 years prior. Oklahoma is now the Indian territory. Remember, we talked about the Trail of Tears and all of that, and that's where the Indians were. And so obviously it was not free or a slave. It was just its own little area. So that's what we had, and that's why that's what the United States looked like after California joined. Now, with all this, we had the Fugitive Slave Act. And like we said, fugitive means runaway slave. And what this did is it required all citizens, everybody, to help catch slaves when they ran away. So before, if a slave ran away, they could get help or they could get whatever, or people could just ignore them. But now you had to turn them in. And if you didn't, you could be fined up to $1,000 because you could be said to be helping the slave, or if you did help the slave, you could be fined up to $1,000. And they even set up special courts to handle runaway slaves. What are we going to do if we have a slave run away? It'll just be handled by these special courts. So everything was a little bit different. Now, which is normally the case in a compromise, neither side really liked it. Neither side hated it, but neither side was too thrilled about it either. And then there were signs and stuff, and this is just an example of a sign that they may have had at that time, just saying that if we catch you, this is what's going to happen. Look out for runaway slaves and that kind of thing. And remember, we talked before about how slaves would go to the north and they'd be free. Well, after this, that wasn't really the case because even in the north they had to turn in slaves. So this made it harder for slaves to escape because basically they had to get all the way up to Canada in order to be freed. So that's the first two sections of chapter 16, and we'll do another slide here later where we'll do the other three sections of the chapter. So that is it for this lesson.